I was standing behind the curtain right before it went up at the very top of the show, and like there was, you know, the dry ice surrounding me, all the fog. I was there in my roller skates, and like the curtain went up and the lights went up, and I went, oh God, I'm really doing this. All right, let's do the show.
Hey there, it's Connor Muller, and welcome to Let's Chat Showbiz. This podcast is all about Australian showbiz. We're talking the glitz, the glam, the tough times, and everything in between. Let's get this show on the road. Today's guest is an award-winning cabaret artist, a musical theatre actor, and a performing arts mentor. It is an absolute honour to welcome Adelaide's very own Millicent Sarre. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Now, I want to start talking to you about Class of Cabaret. In 2011, you did Class Cabaret. Tell me about that, and for those that aren't aware what Class Cabaret is, explain that.
So, Class of Cabaret is this awesome educational program through the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. So it was started in 2010 by David Campbell. So he was the artistic director of the Cabaret Festival at the time, and he wanted to start this program to teach high school students about the art of cabaret. It was called High School Cabaret back in the day. And I was very fortunate that when I was in year 11, in 2011, I was one of the people who got to be mentored by David Campbell, like still in his artistic director capacity. He took the time out to mentor young people in the art of cabaret, which was so cool. And I feel really fortunate that I had the opportunity to do this because at the time I was a singer-songwriter. Like I loved the likes of Missy Higgins, like she's still my idol. And so I wanted to write my own music, and I wanted to perform it and sing it and play piano. But then I also was this huge like music theatre geek as well, and I loved musical theatre. And those two didn't really overlap in my mind. I sort of felt like there was a bit of a crossroads, fork in the road about if I were to pursue an artistic pathway, which, sorry, I just hit your TV, which pathway I'd go down. And when I got the opportunity to do Class of Cabaret, it clicked for me that I could be on stage and I could interact with an audience, and I could have the theatrical elements and the live performance elements that I loved so much about musical theatre. And like there was the capacity for comedy and for like a heightened caricature of yourself. But then at the same time, I could incorporate my original songwriting. I could talk about issues that mattered to me. It could be a vehicle for my own writing, both like prose and music. And it was a beautiful forum where a lot of the things that I loved so much about these different art forms intersected at. And it really opened my eyes. Like I didn't really have a concept of what cabaret was before I undertook this experience with David Campbell. And now it's what I do for a living. So it was, a really, really special opportunity to have at such a formative age to go, oh, this is an art form where I can incorporate so many of the things that I love about performance and about music. And now it's what I do for my job. So yeah, I feel really lucky that I had the opportunity to do that, and now that I get to teach it to the next generation of artists.
Yeah, that was my next question, was you've been mentoring the Class of Cabaret alongside Mark Oats since 2024.
I have.
Why is that important to you?
It's the best job I've ever had. Like I feel so passionate about the work that we do with Class of Cabaret. I mean, it's wonderful that I already had like a very long-standing friendship with Mark. So to be able to work with somebody who I trust so much and who I really respect as an artist has been wonderful. And like, because we had that pre-existing friendship, we gel really well as a mentoring duo. We bounce off each other really nicely, which I love. But I care so much about this program because not only are we going to get, and do we get, these really impressive, experienced performers who have probably come through like, you know, your Pelican Productions, Music Theatre Camp. They've really sharpened their teeth on experiences that they've had. But we also get to meet and to work with young people who don't have as much performance experience but have this real je ne sais quoi, who have natural storytelling abilities, or who have this comedic streak, or they're a little bit quirky, or they're a little bit interesting, or they've got a really cool story to tell. And I feel so passionately about giving them an opportunity and a platform to be able to, in this genre that is sort of very broad and all-encompassing, find their artistic voice and have a platform where maybe in other more like commercial, say, genres, they're not necessarily the right fit. So when we have the auditions for the program, because it's, you know, it's really popular now, and we're lucky, it's quite competitive. There are 16 participants every year from an application pool of, you know, sometimes 70, 80 students. When we're piecing together the final cohort, it's really important that we go, let's make sure that in addition to the experienced performers who have had a lot of opportunities, we're also prioritizing people for whom this is going to be a real turning point for them. I feel really grateful that I had that opportunity to learn about cabaret when I was 17. It feels really special to then be able to provide that same opportunity to the next generation.
Yeah, of course. And I think obviously it's in part of the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. That in itself is pretty big. But also they get SACE accreditation for it. That's a massive thing.
They do, yeah.
I mean, if I had known that when I was in school, that would have been something that I would have jumped at, to get SACE accreditation to basically perform in the Cabaret Festival.
I know.
That's wild.
It's phenomenal. I mean, they have a platform to be able to perform in the biggest cabaret festival in the world, and the fact that the Department of Education recognises how significant an opportunity that is, and they also work with Emma Habenstraat, who is a wonderful educator. They do the SACE components of the course with her. But yeah, I am so appreciative that the state government recognises how important an opportunity it is, and recognises that with SACE credits. It's really cool.
For sure. You've done quite a few fringe shows over the years. I want to talk to you about Millicent Sarre's Opinionated.
Yes.
Where did that idea come from, and what's that show about?
So, Opinionated was my sophomore show. It was the second kind of vehicle cabaret that I wrote after the success of my debut show, Friendly Feminism. I think that coming out of Friendly Feminism, I wanted to push myself a little bit, especially in the comedy realm, and in terms of the boundaries that I was pushing, musically. I like to say that whenever I write a solo show, I feel like something's been itching at the back of my brain for an extended period, sometimes a couple of years, and then I just have to blurt it all out onto a page and create a work out of it. When I wrote Friendly Feminism, I was really feeling viscerally angry about rape culture and about toxic masculinity. There was a real, I mean, it's still ongoing, of course, because the work isn't done and the conversation isn't finished. But in 2018, there was a real peak in the conversation around gendered violence against women. And I was feeling that really deeply, and it had been tugging in the back of my brain, and I had to put it into my music and into a show. And when I went to write Opinionated, the thing that had been tugging in the back of my brain and sort of itching away and kind of working in my subconscious was the idea of body image and the experiences that women have of their own bodies, and the way that societally we're taught to hate our physical form, how that's a really significant and important feminist issue, and how that ties in so much to the way that women are conditioned in day-to-day life to be submissive and to shrink ourselves and to not take up space. And so that was the that was the thematic arc that I was kind of working through, and that kind of all just like spilled out onto the page one day. Like I remember waking up in the middle of the night and being like, this is the new show. And Dot pointing like, and I talk about this and I talk about this and we talk about that. And you wouldn't know that was connected to that until later. And so normally I wake like in a cold sweat. But yeah, when I wrote Opinionated, I wanted to write a show that ultimately culminated in a discussion of the way that women are conditioned to act and behave. And I wrote a show out of that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, rightfully so. And it won Best Cabaret of Adelaide Fringe in 2023.
It did.
That must make you feel very proud.
I was very proud. Yeah, I think especially because I feel like I took a real leap being like, I'm going to put all of my eggs in this basket and I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to be a full-time artist and I'm going to create theatre and cabaret for a living. I'm going to write songs for a living. That, like in this economy, like that was risky, you know?
Yeah.
And even though at that point I was still definitely finding my feet, like, you know, financially and making sure that I was able to support myself, it was a real vote of confidence to be like, no, you're on the right track. Like what you're making is being understood. Like your audiences are picking up what you're putting down. You have the capacity to create work that is going to be critically acclaimed. It's going to be worth it.
Yeah. Now tell me about Bisexual Intellectuals. You did that at the Melbourne Fringe and the Adelaide Fringe in 2024 and 2025.
I did.
Tell me about that.
So I wrote Bisexual Intellectuals with two of my best friends, Gemma and Rosie. So I studied music theatre at uni with Rosie. Gem and I have been best friends for almost 10 years. We did like community theatre in Adelaide together and we just immediately clicked. We were housemates as well. And we three just really, really clicked as a duo. Like when I was at uni and I met Rosie, I was like, oh my God, you've got to meet Gemma. And then I would go home and I was living with Gemma and I was like, oh my God, you've got to meet Rosie. And just the three of us really, really clicked as a trio. We're all, you know, music theatre trained. We're all like into the comedy cabaret shtick. Like Gemma was sang backing vocals and was some comedic relief when I did Friendly Feminism. And also because I was doing my first ever cabaret work and I was like, this is terrifying. I want my best friend on stage with me. So we had that in mind. And also we were all bi. So we were like, there's something in this. Yeah. And I have no idea how it came into existence. I think at one point we just realized that bisexual and intellectual rhymed. We were like, oh, obviously that's the name of our trio. And then we just kind of kept talking like it was going to happen. And we were like, oh yeah, so like obviously when we write our trio comedy cabaret show, and I think it started like almost as a joke. And then we just kept saying it enough that we were like, oh yeah, we're doing this.
We've got a show.
And also like when Gem and I lived together, we would just like riff off of each other so much and come up with so many like little like jingles and songs around the house that some of which like evolved into full songs. Like in Bisexual Intellectuals, it's like a song that fully exists. It's something that we just like sang in our living room. But it's so joyful to make something with two of my best friends. They're two of the funniest people that I know. I have to be like the straight guy, even though it's a queer show, because they're both so chaotic that I'm the one sort of like trying to keep the chaos at bay. That's my role in the trio. But after writing Friendly Feminism and Opinionated relatively independently, I mean, because Jem was involved in Friendly Feminism, she kind of helped me with some of the writing process, but on the most part, they were both written as like solo entities. To then have two collaborators and to work in a dynamic trio, especially with two of my best friends who have such great comedic sensibilities, was like, it felt like the easiest process in the world, because if you got stuck at a point creatively, there were always two other people to bounce off of. So yeah, Bisexual Intellectuals is such a joy. I'm really looking forward to the point in time, which I think will hopefully happen soon, where we write our follow-up show
Yeah.
as a trio. It's one of the great joys, especially where in my other cabaret work, you know, the first probably 50% is comedy, and then we get to like the pathos.
Mm-hmm.
And in Bisexual Intellectuals, while it is underpinned with like the messaging of, hey, we don't stand for bisexual erasure, and, you know, queer community is so important, queer representation is so important, even though it's underpinned with those values, it's all comedy. Like it's all upbeat. We don't get to the like soul crushing bit. So
And audiences love that.
exactly.
They love it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we're entering Fringe season, and
We
you have
are
your new
entering
show.
Fringe season.
Tell me about your new show. What's it called? What can the audience expect?
Sure. So I am about to premiere. I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but when we are recording, a week from today, I will be premiering my new show called Millicent Sarre is Too Tired to Smash Patriarchy. And it is a comedy cabaret, feminist cabaret about burnout and why it's a feminist and social justice issue. So like I said, when I write a new work, it's something that's been like percolating in my brain. And I've now been an independent artist for a good 5-6 years. And in that time, have experienced my fair share of burnout. Because especially, I mean, I think this is true of any industry, and I feel it particularly strongly in the performing arts. Like early in your career, there's a real hustle phase, right? Where you are trying to get yourself out there, where you're trying to take every opportunity that you can, where you're going, look, let me put myself out there consistently, and I don't know what's going to come of it, but like if I'm just making the effort, I know that somewhere down the line that's going to pay off, which is definitely effective. And I'm finding the fruits of my labor years down the track. However, that hustle period is really exhausting and takes a lot out of you, especially when you're an artist and the product that you are selling is yourself. That can be really, you know, emotionally and mentally taxing. And so I have experienced my fair share of like phases of burnout, especially like post festival season where you are putting yourself out there consistently. And the more that I have sat with it and talked to people in my orbit and talked to my therapist about it and engaged with like some really great literature around it as well, the more that I've started to make these connections, being like, no, this is a feminist issue. This is a social justice issue, because there are so many factors that mean that women are more susceptible to burnout. You know, the fact that especially women in heterosexual partnerships are more likely to take on so much more of the mental and emotional and cognitive load of their families, that women are more susceptible to burnout. It's a social justice issue because when we're burnt out, we don't have the capacity to advocate for vulnerable groups. And I wanted to create a work that was relatable and funny, because I think that en masse, so many of us are burnt out in 2026. And I think that there are some societal-wide factors that are contributing to that. But also a work that allowed people to feel the grief and the frustration and the anger of that, and then feel like they had the capacity to make some change in that regard. So I've been very thrilled to hear with my like test audiences.
Yeah.
I've had, you know, friends in my living room. I've been like, what do you think of this? And then it's a slightly more formal opportunity where a week ago I had some people in the beautiful Black Box Theatre at the Mill, the Breakout, where I showed them the work and kind of got some feedback. And I've been really thrilled to hear that the work is doing what I hoped it would, and that the audience response is aligned with what I had worked towards. I'm really excited to share it in 7 days from now.
And that's on Adelaide Fringe. How long is that one for? Do you know the dates?
my main season is the 20th of February to the 1st of March, which is a Friday, and then a full week to the next Sunday. I just don't have a show on the Monday. And then randomly, we wait 2 weeks as a fortnight, and then I have an extra show on the 15th of March, which is a matinee, because the others are all evening shows. So, yeah, matinee might be slightly more accessible to some people.
Yeah, of course, especially in Adelaide.
Especially in Adelaide, yeah. Like 8:40 p.m. on a Sunday night, like that's not ideal. Although people are booking, so thank you for coming on at 8:40 p.m. on a Sunday night.
Now, let's talk about Kimberly Akimbo.
Yes.
You understudied the entire female cast, is that correct?
I did.
What was that like?
It was wonderful. Like, the experience that I had on that show was extraordinary. And to be honest, a great lesson in becoming aware of like what I'm capable of. Like, I think when I was first approached to take on that load, to be like, hey, can you cover the 5 female tracks in this show? I was quite daunted at the prospect of having to do that. That felt like a mammoth task. And when I was first approached, the proviso was, like if you were expected to go on at any point, like you could go on book in hand, like you could have the script there, like we wouldn't expect you to be off script. And I was like, that's really nice. And also my ego couldn't handle that. Like, fair enough, I think for my own sense of like, I don't know, professionalism and my expectations of myself, I was like, no, I want to push myself to the point that I could execute it off book. And it was a brilliant experience. I mean, just being in the room with some of those performers was a learning experience in itself. Like, watching Marina Pryor up close, that woman is extraordinary. Like, I think her work ethic and the warmth that she brings to the room and the generosity of spirit that she has was just a masterclass in grace and kindness, and so wonderful to see somebody like lauded as, Australia's leading lady, right? Doesn't, put herself on a pedestal or have any sense of ego associated with that. So, being in the room with her and like the incredible other women in the cast, like Christy Whelan Brown, Casey Donovan, like such incredible performers and also incredible people to get to learn from, was really, really wonderful. And then, of course, as happens, because we did a 2-month season in the middle of winter, so inevitably people were going to get sick. Also, like, the show, everyone was on roller skates at one point. Like, it was not the type of show to be like, oh yeah, everyone will be fine, don't worry about it, we don't need understudy. Like, this was, there was maybe a slightly more risk associated than most musicals. I mean, Amy Campbell, who's the choreographer, was so diligent about setting us all up for success with the roller skates and not injuring ourselves and having some action plans to avoid that. But yes, because people do get sick, as is the way, I had the opportunity to go on for 3 of the 5 roles that I covered. And like I said, it was a great learning experience of what I'm capable of, which was really lovely. I expected that when I first got the call to go on that I would be an anxious mess. Like, I expected to find out that was happening and like absolutely fall into a puddle. And I really surprised myself in a wonderful way that I found out that was happening, and I had this just like weird calm come over my body, and I went, all right, this is what I need to do. I'll make it happen. But it was also a really wonderful exercise in sort of abandoning my perfectionism, because, I mean, like I said, I hold myself to a very, very high standard. I have really high expectations of myself. And when you go on stage having maybe done one run of the show ever in a particular track, in a particular role, it's impossible that it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Especially when you also are holding 4 others in your head.
That's right.
Like it's physically impossible that everything is going to go right. And so that kind of almost like took my perfectionism, like I was off the hook a little bit, where I was like, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to give it a crack. The audience knows that I'm the understudy. They had a nice pre-show announcement. Thank you, MTC. You know what? I'm just going to approach this with joy and playfulness and see what happens. Because, like, music theatre is my favourite thing in the entire world. So, like, I get to do what I love for a living. I'm not going to rob myself of the joy of that by beating myself up about the things that went wrong when I'm sort of doing this on the fly. But I was really thrilled that when I did go on, things went well. I felt very supported by the cast and the creative team and the crew. Like they really rallied around me and set me up for success. And the audiences were so warm. I mean, like, you would get this as a patron of the arts. Like when you go and you find out that there's going to be an understudy on, and I've definitely been guilty of this as well. Like initially you're like, oh, I wanted to see Amber Riley in Dreamgirls. That's from personal experience. And then immediately you're like blown away by the understudy and you're like, 100%. Oh my God, I'm experiencing
like who am I?
History.
They're fine.
But there's always like a little bit of an excitement of being like, oh my gosh, like how great that this person is getting an opportunity
100%.
and that I get to witness it. So I found that the audiences were really warm and I don't want to say forgiving because it's not like anything went drastically wrong, but that they were incredibly supportive, and I'm enormously grateful for that experience.
Do you ever have a bit of a pinch yourself moment thinking that you have now played a role that Marina Pryor was playing and Casey Donovan, and you were on stage with them, and like, do you look back and go, as little you would have been like, oh my God, it's Marina Pryor?
100%. Yeah. There are 2 moments particularly that come to mind. The first was, when I went on in Marina's track as Kimberly, the title character in Kimberly Akimbo. Look, understudying Marina Pryor was not on my 2025 bingo card. And I, had a real pinch me moment when I was standing behind the curtain right before it went up at the very top of the show, and like there was, you know, the dry ice surrounding me, all the fog. I was there in my roller skates, and like the curtain went up and the lights went up, and I went, oh God, I'm really doing this. All right, let's do the show. Like, I did have a moment then, but then I was just like so in the swing of it that I couldn't really stop. Like, you know, that track rarely left the stage, so I didn't even really have time to think about it. I was like, all right, what's next? Cool, let's do it. But also the other moment I had was in the song Better, which is sort of like the huge like banger of the show, where when I was in the Kimberly track, I had Casey singing that to me, which was really nice because I had previously gone on Casey's track and had to sing this massive song, and that was pretty daunting. And also the 4 teen characters rather than 14, 4, not 1 4. They had like this massive choreographic number. So when I had gone on in Alana's track as Teresa, I'd been like, the choreo, oh, this is really daunting. And then when I'd gone on in Casey's track, I'd be like, oh, I gotta sing this big song, okay. So then when I was on for Kimberly and like sort of the song kind of happened around her, and like she did a little bit of the choreo, but it was not as involved comparatively. I just got to stand there almost and just have Casey Donovan belt in my face. And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever experienced.
Literally.
Oh, it was phenomenal. So that was my second pinch me moment. I was like, I I voted for you on Idol and now you're singing in my face. I'm so happy. Like just that, that voice up close, delicious.
And to experience that, like even if you're in a production like that, usually only playing one role. So you don't see it from all different, and you miss out on scenes, or you walk off going, I haven't seen that, or I've missed that. But to be doing all of it, it's pretty special.
It was funny when I watched opening night in Adelaide, I kind of gave myself the night off of swing brain because I, in rehearsals, had been very vigilantly watching all of the femme tracks. And opening night, I was like, I'm not working right now. I'm just going to like enjoy and experience the show. Yeah. And there were so many things that I picked up on, especially that like Jacob and Marty did as the masked teen characters that I just like never seen. And I was like, that's really funny. And I've never noticed because I've been too worried about what the women are doing. So that's great. That's fun.
Now let's talk about Prime Time.
Yes.
The new Australian musical, which you've written the music and the lyrics for.
I have.
Tell me about Prime Time.
So Primetime is one of the enormous, enormous joys in my life. It's a new musical that I'm writing with my co-writer, Joseph Simons, who I would take a bullet for. I adore that man. So we started writing together in 2024. Joe was actually my lecturer at uni. So I studied music theatre at Eldecon, and Joe was my director and, ballet and jazz teacher. But I was a mature age student when I went through music theatre. It was my second undergrad degree. So I was in my late 20s at the time. And Joe is pretty young to be an academic. So we're actually not that dissimilar in age. And we had a really, really strong working relationship as student and teacher. And it was like very apparent to both of us that we were like, oh, we're going to be friends after this, right? So when I graduated, we had a coffee together and he was like, oh, what are you doing? And I said, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, and I also like want to write a musical, just sort of off the cuff. And he was like, we should write a musical together. And it was actually kind of that simple. Like Joe is a really experienced playwright and director, but doesn't write music. I write music and lyrics and am really experienced in the songwriting field, but have never written a play before. I've never written dialogue or scenes. So we had these really supplementary skill sets, and we already had a really good working relationship. So we just decided to commit to it, and we were like, let's write a musical, let's do it. And we kind of toyed for a long time about subject matter and whatnot, and whether or not we would adapt something and use existing intellectual property or create something from scratch. And it became apparent, like it bubbled up that we wanted to create our own world, that we wanted to write something new and fresh. And Joe is an avid game show fan. Like he's seen every episode of The Price is Right. Like that's his special category.
I did not know that. There you go.
Yeah, that's a fun fact about him.
Yeah, right.
And so he kind of went, why don't we write a show about game shows? But also he was really familiar with my back catalogue of cabaret work and went, look, your artistic voice is really strong when you're writing about feminist issues. Let's write a musical that has these strong feminist values that is set on a game show. And we kind of went from there. Like we did a lot of, what if this? And oh, and what if she was that? And oh, what if we had this character? And we did a lot of what if in the early process. But ultimately we landed on a narrative that is set in 2005 on a game show called Race Against the Clock. And the show's been on air for 40 years. The game show's host, Frank Price, he's called Frank Price because Price, obviously, and franc is also a currency, which I find exciting. That's why I advocated that he was going to be called Frank. he has been the host for the 40 years that the show has been on air, so from 1965 to 2005. And over the course of the show's time on air, the prize models, so his right-hand women who've presented the prizes and, you know, the giant checks and everything, they have come and gone. There's sort of been a revolving door of the prize models because, you know, they suddenly mysteriously get replaced around the time of their 30th birthday. So there's, you know, some ageism involved in the fact that the right-hand women need to be young and quote-unquote beautiful, whereas an aging man always has an opportunity to be in the public eye. But the sort of inciting incident of the musical is that in 2005, they're holding a 40th anniversary, and all of the models who have worked on the show and the current model are brought together for the first time. There's 5 of them. And while initially there's that, you know, the internalized misogyny of the rivalry that is encouraged between women of going, oh, you're the younger, hotter version of me, you replaced me and stole my job. While there's initially that tension, what becomes apparent is that the sexist treatment that all of them experienced, that there are a lot of similarities in what they had to go through, and that they have more in common than they think. They band together, they decide that they're going to take action. And to find out what action they take, you need to come see the musical.
That's right. And we saw it in the Cabaret Festival, which I saw, and I mean, it was so exciting.
Thank you.
And what was the reaction from audiences after that reading?
We were pretty blown away.
Yeah.
We were pretty blown away. I think we'd been working. So I mentioned Amy Campbell was the choreographer of Kimberly Akimbo. She also has been mentoring Joe and I as a writing duo. And one of her real pearls of wisdom was saying to us, do not focus on the outcome, focus on the process. Like you can think all you want about, like, you know, opening night, or in this situation, you know, the reading at the Cabaret Festival as, you know, the goal that you're working towards, but you need to pour that energy and direct that energy into creating a solid product, because the outcomes and the reaction will follow if you've put the time and energy into the creative process. So we'd been trying to do that. We'd been just hunkering down and making sure that this work that we were putting out was of the highest quality that we could in the time frame that we had. And we'd kind of been trying to not think about what the audience reaction was going to be. So I think that almost like managed our expectations even more, that when the response was so overwhelmingly positive, that we were really, really blown away by it. And it's definitely bolstered us. I mean, writing new musical theatre, especially in Australia, where the pathways to do that aren't quite as well trod as they might be, like in the US and the UK, can be a really long and sometimes like tedious process. Like there's a lot of like grant applications involved, and there's a lot of putting in the work to write something, and hoping that one day the work all comes to fruition. So I think taking the energy of the response from the Cabaret Festival has carried us through that process. And we are about to embark on a fundraising campaign to be able to do our second development in April of this year. So we've been really fortunate to get MatchLab funding from Creative Australia. So that means that when we fundraise, the amount that donors give to our project will be doubled by Creative Australia, which is so exciting. So we're about to embark on that campaign in order to be able to undergo our second phase of development with a group of actors, do another showing of the work as it stands, because the work that you saw in the Cabaret Festival was predominantly Act 1 and then a handful of songs from Act 2. And now we've got a full draft of the whole musical. So we want to put that in actors' mouths and bodies and hear how it's coming across and how successful it is. And that's the second big phase in what is going to be a multi-phase process. But we're putting in the time so that we know that ultimately the product that we end up with is as strong as it can be.
Yeah. No, I think it's very, very exciting.
Thank you.
Who in the industry has inspired you? Tough question.
I've already mentioned her, but I love Missy Higgins. Yeah. In actual fact, okay, I'm manifesting this. And everyone that I talk to when it comes up, I say, I'm just putting this out in the universe and I know that one day it's going to come to fruition. I want to meet Missy Higgins. I just want to look her in the face and say, thank you so much. You were the person who inspired me to want to write songs and play piano and sing at the same time. Like, I would go to my piano lessons as a kid and they would get me playing classical stuff, and then I would go home and ignore that and I would play The Sound of White. Missy Higgins is an enormous songwriting idol of mine, and I think that in my songwriting, I think you can hear it. Like, her influence is really apparent. I adore the work of Tim Minchin, and I think that his career trajectory, especially from going from being a cabaret artist to a musical theatre composer, is really, really inspiring to me. I had the opportunity to meet and chat with Tim a couple of years ago, and it was really, really inspiring. Like, I think that the work he does is extraordinary. I think that his lyricism is out of this world. I really hold him up as a massive songwriting inspiration as well. As I do Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yeah. I love his songwriting and his lyricism. He's really inspired some of the more, and I say this with real inverted commas, rap elements of my original work. With apologies taken. But honestly, there are so many incredible artists in Australia who I look up to as well. Gillian Cosgrove, we were talking about off mic earlier. I adore her work. I think that, again, her cabaret into music theatre trajectory is really inspiring. Vidya Makin as a music theatre and composer and performer, I really look up to. There are some incredible women, especially writing in Australia, who really inspire me.
Now, at the end of each episode, I ask a question to ask the next guest. Our last guest was Sophie Hyde, director Sophie Hyde.
Oh, amazing.
And her question was,
tell us about a time that you've felt very loved.
Oh, I love that. Felt very loved. So, over the break between Christmas and New Year's, you know, that week we spend in the void, that random nothing week.
Yeah.
I will often in that week go camping with my family. There's a beautiful campground that we consistently go to in northern New South Wales called Tiona. There's a beautiful community there who I've been connected with since my childhood, since birth really, and we'll go there as a family every couple of years or so, which we did at the end of 2025. At the end of last year, I was heinously burnt out, which inspired a lot of the content for my new show about burnout, fortunately. But I had a massive year and I was really, really depleted. And so spending this week with my family, it was the first time that my partner had ever come with us. And so to show them this beautiful place in this community that meant a lot to me. So at this camp for a week, I had so much quality time with my family. We were in nature. I didn't have any phone reception. I was surrounded by this beautiful community of people that I've known my whole life. I ran the community choir, and I got to introduce my partner to all these really special people, and subsequently got to introduce Cam, my partner, to everyone there.
Yeah.
And I think I I felt so incredibly loved and upheld by that community, by my family. It was really, really special. And I think as someone who gets a lot of fulfillment and energy out of my work, it was really special for me to be reminded that I can feel so recharged and so loved and so fulfilled by something that has nothing to do with my, creative career, that is just about family and community. Yeah. So that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, stunning. Now, a question for the next guest. We don't know who it is. It can be a question about absolutely anything. I've had questions about cream or jam first on scones, or like,
I love
and what do you
that.
think? Cream or jam on first on scones?
I would go cream first.
And then jam on top?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Is that controversial?
You got to put the jam first because you can spread it on the scone and then you put the cream on top.
See, I think...
You can't dob the jam on top.
Yeah, you can though.
Yeah, okay.
Because in my mind, like, it's nice when the cream sort of like gets absorbed into the scone.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's okay. We'll leave that one in the past.
Variety is the spice of life, isn't it? So,
what about pineapple on pizza?
Okay, feel like impartial.
Oh, well, that's boring.
It is boring, isn't it, for something that's so divisive?
I was ready to be like, oh, it's okay now. We can still be friends.
I will say, like, I probably wouldn't like actively go for it, but then had it the other day and I went, this is quite good. Just like a nice bit of like acidity, sweetness.
Yeah, look.
But if I had to choose a camp, I would choose the pro camp. But it's not a hill I'll die on. If I never had pineapple on pizza ever again, I'd be fine. Which is sort of boring. Okay, what question am I going to ask the next guest, mystery guest, whomever they may be? I want to know, and I feel like I'm sort of ripping Sophie off because it feels like a very similar question, but like, I want to know what brings you the most joy.
Yeah, right. Good question. Now, the final question I have for you, is there anyone you think would be good on Let's Chat Showbiz?
Let's chat. Okay, yes, I do. I think you should talk to my co-writer, Joseph Simons.
Yes.
Because he is a delight. He's so charismatic. He's very, very knowledgeable. He's had some wonderful experiences. And he can, you can corroborate the story and see if his version of events of creating primetime is the same.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
This was gorgeous.
Oh, that was so good. I'm so happy with that.
Oh, great.
Amazing. Thanks for tuning in. If you want more episodes of Let's Chat Showbiz, you can follow along on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook for all you oldies. See you next time on Let's Chat Showbiz.